Good morning, or depending on when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told how to voice radio, so today I'm going to be showing you, it's a little bit of a letter to Pokemon and a little bit of a history lesson. We're going to be talking about Arceus, where he's gone, and why we need him back. So, if we just start off with a brief introduction about Arceus as a whole, I think that might be a pretty good place to start. Now, Arceus is known as the original one. He is, in fact, the trio master of both the Lake Guardians, that's Uxie, Azalf, and Mesprit, and the Creation Trio, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. So, shall we say, he's a bit of a big boss daddy in the Pokemon world. He is often said to have created the Pokemon world, making him kind of like a Pokemon deity, I suppose. And check out these Pokedex entries. In Diamond, it says, it is described in mythology as the Pokemon that shaped the universe with 1,000 arms. That's a pretty big boast. In Pearl it said, it is told in mythology that this Pokemon was born before the universe even existed. Don't think about that one too much, it will mess with your head. And in Platinum it said, it is said to have emerged from an egg in a place where there was nothing, then shaped the world. So there was nothing, then there was Arceus, then there was the world. And Arceus made the world. All this goes to say Arceus, pretty important in the whole Pokemon mythology. Now, Arceus as a Pokemon was introduced into the Pokemon trading card game in the Arceus set in November 2009. This was the last of the Diamond and Pearl block. We had a bunch of Diamond and Pearl sets, a bunch of Platinum sets, and this was the very last one, before we went to Heart Gold, Soul Silver. And Arceus even had a special rule, which said that you could play as many Pokemon called Arceus as you like in your deck. Just imagine for a second how awesome it would be if Eevee had that rule nowadays. That would be pretty gosh darn cool, but he doesn't. So you had all these, and there were 12 different Arceuses in the set, and there was a promo as well, and we're going to go through all of these Arceuses as we go through. Now, there were a couple of other cards in this Arceus set that were particularly useful. First of all, there was Beginning Door. Search your deck for an Arceus and put it into your hand. It's essentially universal Pokemon search, as long as the only Pokemon you're searching for is Arceus. And when you're talking about a Pokemon that created the world, why would you want to search for anything else? There was also this Stadium Ultimate Zone, and Ultimate Zone was pretty gosh darned important. So, we had an Arceus of every type. Now, Arceus as a Pokemon, if he's holding a plate, he can change his type. And what you had in the Arceus expansion was one different Arceus of each type. We even had 3 level X's as well. Now, what this meant was that you had an Arceus that could hit for every single weakness. No matter what Pokemon your opponent put out, if it had a weakness, Arceus could hit it. And all 3 of the level X's had the Poké Body. Remember, back then there used to be Poké Powers that were active and Poké Bodies that were passive. And they all had the Poké Body multi-type, which said that the Arceus level X is the same type as its previous level. For newer players, level X was a new evolution, and it was like an evolution, but not technically an evolution, it was just leveling up. Your Pokemon had to have been out for a turn and in the active, and then you could level him up, put a level X down, like you might put down a Mega Evolution or a Break Evolution nowadays. And what this meant was you could put whatever Pokemon active you liked, and then you could level X it, and it would go up to 120 HP, it would have no weakness, and it would keep its type. Very nice indeed. But one of these level X's was better than the other, and it was the Omniscient one. Because here, you could use all the attacks of all the Arceus you had in play, as long as you had the right energy. So if you wanted to attack a water-weak Pokemon, you use the Water Arceus, level X, but you don't have to use the Water Arceus's attack. You can use whatever attack you want from any Arceus on the field, but with a 120 HP level X with no weakness, that was always hitting for weakness. Any type you like, always hitting for weakness, no weakness yourself. That's pretty gosh darn good. But we needed a way to set this up, and the way we set it up was with the colourless Arceus. Now, the colourless Arceus had a half-decent attack, we'll talk about that in a minute, but it had the incredibly useful attack Ripple Swell. If you've got 6 Arceus in play, and each of them is of a different type, search your deck for up to 6 basic energy cards and attach them to a different Pokemon, i.e. search for up to 6 energy and put them onto each of your Pokemon in play. Now, you can only have 6 Pokemon in play at one time, so you had to have a full party of Arceus out. But there was the card Pokemon Collector back then, or shortly afterwards in Heart Gold Soul Silver, which allowed you to search for free basic Pokemon. And you had this beginning door card that allowed you to search for Arceus. Although you couldn't use cards like Uxie to draw extra cards because, of course, Uxie is not an Arceus, and he takes up a space on your bench. So, you would use this attack Ripple Swell, and it would get a load of energy. You would essentially, if you could get 6 Arceus out on turn 1, you would have, at the end of your first turn, 6 different Arceus in play, and 6 energy in play, and all the energy will be attached to a different Arceus, so your opponent couldn't knock more than 1 energy off the field. Sounds good? It gets better, because there was a stadium card Ultimate Zone. During each player's turn, the player may move an energy card attached to one of his or her bench Pokemon to his or her active Arceus as often as he or she likes. So you can just put an Arceus active and then move all the energy you want onto Arceus. So Ripple Swell gets all of your energy out, and then Ultimate Zone makes sure that all that energy is on the Pokemon it is supposed to be on. And you can see the combo here nicely, ladies and gentlemen. It's very, very nice indeed. You have you Ripple Swell first of all. You move all the energy onto whatever Pokemon you like. You get the level X going up, and then you've got 120 HP, which at the time was pretty good. No weakness, although it did get rid of resistance as well, and 5 of the Arceuses actually did have resistance, so that was slightly annoying, but what can you do? And then you can use whichever attack you like, while guaranteeing that you hit for weakness. It was really, really fun. So the question is, which Arceuses did you use? Well, the best one, generally, was the Fire-type Arceus. He was your main attacker. And the Fire-type Arceus, for free energy, and most of these use double colourless, so double colourless is a card you would play in the deck. 80 damage, discard 2 energy. But it says energy, not energy card, so you could just discard your double colourless energy. But remember, of course, that you're going to be starting the game with 6 energy on the field, so you can get off a couple of Bright Flames without running out of energy. And if you can draw into your double colourless, you're going to be okay. So discarding that energy, as long as you start with a Ripple Swell and get 6 energy on the field, draw into 1 or 2 double colourlesses, you will be fine in terms of having that energy. So the Fire was the main one. You generally play one of all these Arceus, but you play 1 or 2 extra Fire because he was the best attacker. If you wanted to hit for Water weakness, you get the Water Arceus, use the Omniscient level X, and you're hitting for 160 to anything that's Water weak. See where we're going with this? Very, very nice indeed. And back then, 160, it was knocking out all of these primes, etc. It was very, very good indeed. But there were other attackers. Now, firstly, we've got the colourless Arceus, which had the attack Sky Spear. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 80 damage to that Pokemon. Remove all energy cards attached to Arceus and put them in the Lost Zone. Now, the Lost Zone is a mechanic which has not been used for a while. It's like a second discard pile, but you can't get them back from the Lost Zone. Once they go in the Lost Zone, they are, well, as the name might suggest, lost. But 80 damage, it would be enough to knock out something like an Uxie, for instance, which were big back then. But also, SP decks were huge at the time, and being able to knock out a Garchomp level X because of weakness was, shall we say, pretty gosh darn good. So let's have a quick look at the other Arceuses then, because like I say, there were other attackers. So in no particular order, we had the Grass Arceus. 30 damage for a leaf and a colourless, and remove 3 damage counters from each of your benched Pokemon. So you take a hit or 2, and then you're able to switch to your Grass Arceus and start healing the Pokemon on the bench. It was kind of fancy. Now, if you were behind on prizes, then your main attacker would actually become the Darkness type Arceus. For 1 dark, 1 colourless, 80 damage. As long as you are behind on prizes. It's 2 energy, not free, and you don't have to discard to use it, so it becomes better than the attack from the Fire Arceus, but of course, only while you were behind on prizes. Water Arceus did 50 damage, not affected by resistance, Poké Powers, Pokebodies, or other effects on the defending Pokemon. So if they've used an effect which might reduce damage done to, or any like that, then you could go and use Fast Wave as a different attack. And of course, remember that Bright Flame is good, but you don't always want to be using Bright Flame, because if you're using Bright Flame, you're having to discard energy. So you could just go for something like Fast Wave instead. What you could do is put a Fire, a Dark, and another energy on Arceus. When you're not behind on prizes, you use Bright Flame, but when you are behind on prizes, you use prize count from the Dark Arceus, so you don't have to discard energy. It was a very nice thing to do, but there were more. The Metal Arceus had a fun little attack, which sounded really useful, but it's the kind of thing that never saw a huge amount of play at the time. And his attack was quite handily called, shall we say, Metal Barrier. A metal and a double colourless, 40 damage, prevent all effective attacks, including damage done to Arceus by Pokemon level X during your opponent's next turn. If your opponent was only using level X, you could block them, but with any level X deck, you would have the non-level X, so your opponent could just go to that and try and get KOs instead. But it was still a fun little blocking card, shall we say. Now, we also had the Fighting Arceus, which did 60 damage, I believe, for a fighting and a double colourless, and 10 to all of your bench. Not the kind of attack you want to be using for, you don't want to be damaging your bench, but 60 damage outright is not the end of the world. We had the Psychic Arceus, which might have been the worst one. 40 damage and confusion. It's not terrible, but you don't want to be doing 40 damage and confusion when you could be doing 80 damage, for instance. And then we had the Lightning Arceus that did 30 damage, and you got to switch Arceus back to the bench. One of these hit-and-run Pokemon we've seen so much. Donphan would be a modern example of a hit-and-run Pokemon. Now, you could, I suppose, have switched into something like a Spiritomb that came out in the same set, but then again, that's a non-Arceus Pokemon, and you could even start with it and lose your Ripple Swell. So, you could Lightning Turn from one Arceus to another if you were about to be KO'd, I suppose, but it wasn't the best one. The Fire one was by far the best. Now, I told you we had 3 level X's, and that was absolutely true. So, the least useful of the one was Meteor Blast. For a Grass, a Fire, and a Colourless, and these energy requirements might seem a little bit annoying, but remember you're using Ripple Swell to get 6 different basic energy out, and Ultimate Zone to switch them around to your active Arceus, so it really wasn't a big problem getting all these different energies on there. 100 damage, flip a coin, if tails it is 50. Now you're pretty much always hitting for weakness in this deck, but 100 was not always enough to get the KO, 200 was, and the flip was awkward. The more useful one was Psychic Bolt. It was for a Lightning and a Psychic and a colourless, 100 damage, discard the Lightning, discard the Psychic. Yeah, the 2 discard is a bit of a pain, but as I've said before, the combination of Ripple Swell and Ultimate Zone meant that you had, you were starting the game with 6 energy on the field, so discarding a couple wasn't the end of the world. One thing I should have mentioned about Ripple Swell, it was a free attack. So you didn't need any turn 1 energy to do this. Now, we don't get these kind of attacks anymore, but that little hole, as it were, and I did mention this in videos like my Stormfront history video, so I mentioned this on my channel before. Ripple Swell was a free attack, which I think pretty gosh darn good, especially for how well it set you up. So having to discard those 2 energy, not ideal, shall we say, but you had the energy to afford to do it. And you had the guaranteed essentially 200 because you're always hitting for weakness. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is basically what we saw in terms of this Arceus deck. Now, there was a promo Arceus that came out in a weird set that included a poster, which would show you all of the cards in the particular set. It was not a particularly good Arceus. 80 damage for 4 energy, and you discard all 4 of those energy, and then it does 10 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. you would not play this. You had a colourless Arceus. Ripple Swell was too good. You would probably end up playing 4 of the Ripple Swell Arceus just because the turn 1 Ripple Swell was too good. And a lot of these Arceus actually have a retreat cost of 1. So you could afford to use your 1 energy attachment for the turn to retreat Arceus and then Ripple Swell for 0 energy, which was very, very useful indeed. The promo never saw any play, but it's quite fun that we had it. Now, this deck saw a little bit of play, and it saw a little bit of success. It was, shall we say, limited. There were certain decks that it was not good against. For instance, we had Stormfront Machamp that got an instant KO on any basic Pokémon with its takeout attack. And even though level X is leveling up, it's not evolving, so Machamp did get one-hit KOs on level X's. We also had these SP decks with Luxray level X and Garchomp level X that were very, very fast and very difficult to... It was hard to keep pace. It was possible, but it was quite difficult, shall we say. Plus, to knock out the Garchomp level X, you needed to use a Ripple Swell Arceus, which involved having free energy on there and putting them all in the lost zone just in order to attack, which could, after a while, get a bit annoying. It didn't have a terrible SP match, but SP was a bit faster and more consistent. That's why SP ruled the format and Arceus did not. It could also be a bit of a pain against Vilegar. It wasn't the worst matchup ever, but it was not, as we say, a fantastic matchup. Now, we did think for a while that it was going to get a chance to shine, because everybody thought we were going to have a rotation. That is where certain sets are made not legal anymore. So at the moment, our rotation is X and Y onwards, and every year they update which sets are legal. Everybody thought our rotation was going to be Arceus onwards, and Arceus would have ruled the roost. It would have been the best deck in the format, and then they got rid of it and they went Heart Gold Soul Silver onwards. It was sad. And then there were 0 Arceus cards for 6 years. From November 2009 till November 2015, there were 0 new Arceus cards. But then in November 2015, we got the Hooper Box. And in the Hooper Box, there was a new Arceus for the first time in 6 years. And it's terrible. It kind of harks back, almost, to the original Arceus. Because gather light for 1 energy, move as many energy as you like from your bench Pokemon to this Pokemon. Kind of sounds like Ultimate Zone in an attack, does it not? And then Judgment Blast, 10 damage, 30 more damage for each different type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. Even using something like a Ho-Oh EX and Energy Switch, it would not have been terribly good. Ho-Oh EX with a coin flip comes out of your discard pile with extra basic energy, and then you could maybe use something like Energy Switch to get them on Arceus. It was never particularly good, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a card that's going to see much play. Now, there is a little bit of hope, shall we say, for Arceus, because there is an upcoming mythical collection. We've already seen mythical collections for Jirachi and Celebi and Darkrai, and Mew as well has already been released, and we are hoping that the Arceus one is going to be good. Now, it's not a straight reprint of the Hooper Box Arceus, because the Hooper Box Arceus involved free energy for its second attack, and although we haven't seen a high quality scan of the Mythical Collection Arceus, it takes 4 energy for its second attack. Having said that, straight away we're thinking 4 energy doesn't sound particularly good. I hold out hope, ladies and gentlemen, that we are going to have an Arceus card coming out in the near future that is good. I would love to see another set where we get 14 Arceus. I'll explain why in a minute. Where we get 14 Arceus coming out and there's a whole bunch of Mega Arceus or whatever, or Arceus Break or whatever you want, and Arceus Reign Supreme again. He created the universe. Do we not think he deserves a bit more than waiting 6 years for a garbage promo and then another 6 months, what I can only assume will be another garbage promo? I say 6 months, it's actually longer than that. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Since November 2009, the Fairy type and the Dragon type have been introduced to the Pokemon trading card game. So we've never had a Fairy type Arceus, we've never had a Dragon type Arceus. So here's the deal. If anyone from Pokemon is watching this, and I do hope they are, can we have a new Arceus card, please? Preferably many. And can they be good? Arceus never quite had the right format to shine. He never had a fairy, he never had a dragon, and he's been, shall we say, on the shelf for the better part of, well, over half a decade now. Ladies and gentlemen, we need more Arceus. Now you know the deal. There is a comment section. What kind of Arceus cards do you want? Share the Arceus love. Maybe the hashtag bring back Arceus or something along those lines. There is a like button. Click it if you don't want me going to bed crying tonight. And there is a subscribe button. You should have clicked it by now. I'm hoping you have. I'd like to think we're friends, but if you haven't, click that subscribe button. And if you have, get a friend to subscribe on your behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I've explained the Arceus deck that once was and why we need a new Arceus. Thank you very much for watching, and of course, the most important thing, as it always is, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.